remember, I am here tonight to talk about GCSE questions that you may have. This is not like a really long video explaining the exam or anything like that. I'm just going to go over some common errors that I'm seeing at the moment, and also over some questions that people have emailed me. And I think they are really good for sharing because lots of people are asking themselves the same questions. So I'm going to share my screen and get started. You might be seeing me twice. I don't really know how to remove my second. Oh, there you go. You only see me once now, and I'm going to make it really big. I will be removing all these things later. So hopefully this has given time to everyone to come in and get started. And I am going to address your questions. Let me just check if people are there in YouTube. I am not getting any. I'm not seeing the questions on the side, but I think you are there. So here we go. I'm going to get started. It is the first live after a really long time, so it is to be expected that there might be some hiccups. So first things first, a little disclaimer here. Let me show the disclaimer sign. There you go. That's what it is. No, there, the disclaimer. So, disclaimer, this is in no way endorsed or affiliated with any of the examining boards. This is me as a teacher sharing with you what I think are some really good tips and what I think works in the exam. But obviously, if you want to hear from the examining boards, you need to go to them. They do have plenty of information in their website, and it is fantastic to go there. You can ask, it's fine. If you wonder which board I'm using today, I work mostly with OCR. So where the advice is not about understanding the language, it's about getting marks, that refers to an OCR paper. Right, let us continue. While I wait for people to start putting some questions, hopefully in YouTube, if they can, I'm going to talk about some common errors that I find when people do mocks for me. The first mistake that I see, and this is one where people lose marks all the time, is giving more than one answer. Somehow people think, well, I'm going to give an answer, but it might be something else. So I'm just going to put it there in brackets or put a comma or say something like, this is also called something else. Be brave. Choose one, because this is what we call a harmful addition. If you give a correct answer and right next to it you give a second translation, maybe with a slash, something like that, and the second translation is wrong or the second explanation is wrong, you will lose the marks, even if the first one was correct. And that applies as well for the moments where you are revising your paper, which is something you should do, and you're having second thoughts, and then you're adding things. Sometimes what you add is wrong. So be careful with that. Check your answers well and choose. Another mistake is leaving blanks, missing words, and forgetting to cross out things. I mean, this is a bit of a mixed bag, but they're all related in some way. Leaving blanks, like say in the derivative section or in a section where they say, find a Latin word that means X. You're gonna get exactly 0 marks if you leave it blank. That you know for sure. Therefore, always write something there. The same goes for the translation. Don't leave it blank. You can leave a blank space and continue and then go back to it. That's fine. But do not leave it blank. If you don't know what it says exactly, write what you think it is saying, and you will still get some marks for that, particularly for if maybe you'll get some of the words right. So that will also give you some marks. Another one is the missing words. People translate the text in the translation exercise, and sometimes there's like little words missing that generally are adverbs. And we're going to talk about that later because somebody has asked me in the questions, like tamen, tandem, igitur. You know which ones they are. Read through the Latin and make sure you are accounting for every word there in your translation. Some people even like to put little dots under the words. If you have time, that is not a bad idea. And finally, the ugly one is some people write a draft and then forget to cross it out, and then you're left with two translations, one better than the other. You're only going to get the marks for the for the bad one. So make sure when you're crossing something out, it needs to be clearly crossed out. Yeah, not just in a lighter writing or with brackets or something like that. No, cross it out like a proper crossing. Don't be afraid to make a mess. Mistake number 3, not spotting superlatives and comparative. This happens all the time. And this is why when I read with my students, when we read the text, if I want to show that there is a superlative, I will not say fortissimus. I'll say fortissimus, like very, very, very strong. Very strong. And an example, for example, plurimi. So many people say just many. It's not many, it's the superlative of many. It is very many or the most. Not recognizing prefixes. People often can ignore the prefixes, and then they see words in the exam and think like, oh, wait a second, I've never seen this verb. But actually is a verb that they're very familiar with, like say duco, and a prefix has been added to it. Remember that the vocabulary list contains prefixes like in, re, ad, ab. You must learn the meanings of those. Mistake number 5 is the easily confused words. And I don't think I need to say a lot about this. For example, liberi, the children, and libri, the books, or liberty, the freedman. Make yourself a list or find an existing list. If you look through my resources, there are plenty of lists there. I'm going to put some links below so that you can go and find them. I even have like word wall activities that you can play, Kahoots. Make sure you learn those words. The best way to learn them as well is by writing them, saying them, and seeing them in stories. Right. I am now going to move to your questions, but before I fully move to your questions, I want to check if I'm having any questions in YouTube, which I don't seem to have. So I am going to answer the ones that I have received by email. And if at the end there are some questions that appear, I will address them as they come up. So first question I have received recently is, please, could you give your expertise on word order when writing Latin sentences, please? Also, how far do you deviate from an exact translation to a well-constructed sentence in English, please? This is a great question because it shows that people do worry about the word order, about going too far in the Latin translation. But when it comes to, this is about exercise 11, where you are translating from English into Latin. They are very lenient with the marking. They are very lenient for 2 reasons. The first one is that it's a hard exercise, but the second one is that Latin has a flexible word order. So ideally, you would put the subject first, then the object, and then the verb. And generally, you would put your adverb next to the verb. Like, for example, Miles puelam amat. The soldier loves the girl. Generally, you would have that. Yeah, the subject, the object, the verb. But if in an exam you write, Huelam miles amat, oh, beautiful. It's even poetic. It's the girl that the soldier loves. It's fine. You can also write that. Ideally, you would use the vocabulary from the restricted vocabulary list in the OCR list. But if you do know any other words and any other expressions and they mean the same, and you know that they are correct, you can also use them. But notice when you look at the exam, you generally get 1 mark per word. So it's quite straightforward what they want you to say. I hope this answered the question. In summary, do not worry about the word order and do not worry about deviating from there's not going to be word by word English to Latin. So make it sound idiomatic in Latin and it will be fine. I mean, you can translate the, so you can ignore that, for example. So you need to move away a little bit. Let's move on to the next question. So what should we study as an insurance policy? Last minute cramming. Now, this is a tricky question for me because I'm not going to say it's really good to do last minute cramming. However, you might be in the situation where you are cramming last minute, and we all do to a certain extent before an exam. What I'm going to say is the following. If you don't have a lot of time and you need to focus on something, probably going through complex grammatical topics is not what's going to do it for you. I would say an insurance option is to, for example, look at the adverbs. As I said earlier, adverbs are quite important in this exam. Why? Well, first, there's only 55. I have counted them, actually. I was working through this today. There are 55 adverbs. There aren't that many, so you can learn them. There will be plenty of adverbs in your exam. You will be getting marks every time you understand them and you translate them correctly. Yeah. Also, they don't have any endings, so you're sure that you know what's happening there with the adverb. And so it's doable and it has easy application, and also you can use it in your grammar section, because at some point they will ask you in line whatever, where is there an adverb? Yeah. So I would say that's a good example. If you have more time, then I would say the vocabulary. The vocabulary is the most important thing. If you know how languages work, the more words you know, the less you will be reliant on the grammar. So the vocabulary is almost doing the job for you. Make sure you know your vocabulary really, really well. And in other places, I talk about vocabulary and I plan on doing some more videos. So definitely subscribe and follow, because there will be more information coming up about how to learn vocabulary, which is not like going to Quizlet and just doing Quizlets endlessly. That's not how it works. So make sure to look at the resources. I'll put some underneath and then some will be coming out soon. Next question. Do we need to go in order to answer the questions on the paper? Yes, please do go in order. That's a really good question. It's tempting to think, oh, I'll start with the translation because it gives me more marks. The exam is very well designed. You want to make sure that you go in order because the story builds up, and also it has a warm-up start. It's designed so that it builds up. So do go in order, unless you have a moment of great stress and you think, oh, you know what, I'm going to do the English into Latin, or I'm going to look at the derivations, the derivatives. That's okay. But for the comprehension and translation, I would definitely say go in order. And you are then able later on to jump around once you've seen everything. Yeah. It's not like in other subjects. I am aware that people are advised, oh, just go through the paper, find the questions where you think you're going to get the most marks, do them first so that you get your marks down. You're unlikely to run out of time anyway to do the derivatives or something like that. So I'd say go in order. What are some tricks for easy recognition of tenses and cases? This is a tricky one. I would say doing plenty of reading, doing plenty of looking at texts and exam practice is going to help you the most, but this is probably not the answer the person who sent me this was looking for. They were looking for like some very specific advice. So I would say focus on overall rules rather than specific cases. Like instead of only chanting endings, think about, oh, general rule, for example, all neuter words have the nominative and the accusative plural ending in an A. And actually, this is one that people get wrong quite often because they think it's a feminine or something. So that's a really good rule. Or all the pronouns have a genitive in uyus, and that uyus often looks like a second declension masculine nominative. So look at the pronouns in general and see how they do the genitive, the dative, yeah, because they are different from the other nouns. Or the accusatives, they tend to have M's, but they're not always, that's not always the case in the singular. Think about the neuter words and think about the fact that they're always the same in the nominative and the accusative, also in the singular. And I think I had one more question that I brought up, which was, can I just translate the sentence in the comprehension passages? I think what that means is when they ask you, why did the king did this? Or what did they see during the battle? Give 3 details. Using just a translation instead of your own words. It is generally fine. I would say if you are stressed that you're going to change it too much with your own version, you can always put a translation. Yeah. Right. With this, I've come to the end of the questions that had been said to me. And I have not received any questions that I'm aware of in the chat. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here, and I'll leave the questions up for a while. If people want to contribute, they can write them in the comments, and I will be answering where I can or sending you to resources where I can. If you feel that you need a lot of help at this stage, I do have a grammar revision course that you can take, but this will probably be most useful for those who either want to do a final revision rather than they have a long way to go, in which case I would say just focus on your vocabulary, or those who are sitting in next year, in which case it's perfect because I give you lots of advice about how to structure your learning and how to make sure that what you're learning is being consolidated. So I'm going to give you a little bonus piece of advice before I go. For those of you who have listened through the whole of this, lots of people get confused thinking that for question 10, which is the grammar, you need to choose either the grammar or the composition. You don't have to choose. You can do both. Now, most people prepare for one or the other, and that is fine. But know that if you do both, the mark which is the highest is the one that will be allocated to you. So if you happen to do better in the English to Latin for some reason, you will get those marks. If you do much better in the comprehension, they will give you those marks. And it doesn't matter if you do poorly in the English to Latin. Generally, I would say if you're short on time, and you will know because it will generally be the same for you, you will get a feeling about how you're doing in the exam. Skip one of the 2 sections and do the one you're strongest at. That's one of the examples where you don't go in order. So you skip that section, do the one you're most confident in, and then go back and do the other one. Yeah. So this is something that you can do. I hope this helped. I hope people watch it and find some answers. It was a bit messy at the beginning because it was the first time, but after a long time, actually, I had done some lives before. But I am quite happy, and I think I'm going to do some more because it's nice to be in touch and then see your questions, and it gives me an idea of what resources to create and what to look at. So I hope you're not letting stress take hold of you. This is an exam to enjoy. It's an amazing achievement, and I'm sure you will all find joy in doing it, even though it's not necessarily easy to sit in an exam on your own with a paper and feel the pressure. I'll see you all very soon. Don't be shy. Write in the comments or ask a parent or carer or a tutor to put the comment or to email me if you're watching this with them. It's fine. I will be answering. In proximum. See you soon.